Hi, my name is Chris Hecke. I'm a professional actor. I live and work mostly out of Atlanta, Georgia. I have an MFA in acting from the University of Arkansas, just right over there. And I was most recently featured here locally in Fayetteville, Arkansas, in TheatreSquared's performance of Shakespeare in Love, and in the soon-to-be continued My Father's War. Welcome to today's Friday performance, or Performance Fridays, with our Play On web series. As it seems like this is the new normal, we're going to be having more video meetings, interviews, and for you actors, auditions. I thought I would share some tips and insights from my years of experience, and here's a few things that I like to do whenever I'm auditioning or asked to do a self-tape. So here are just about 5 or so things that maybe are unique to me. The first thing that I like to think about whenever I'm self-taping or auditioning is I want to know who my audience is. So if I'm doing something for film or TV or theater, I want to ask myself, how large is that performance going to be? If I'm auditioning for a 5,000 outdoor foot theater, then my audition is going to be huge and big like this, because I want that theater director to know, even though this is just on the phone or with a camera, that I can have this larger than life example of my work. And of course, if you're doing something that's discreet and film related, then you can be as minute and detailed as possible. And those are just silly examples. So I always ask myself that question, what is my audience? If my audience is a theater, I also ask, how large is this theater? How big does my audition or scene need to be to translate into this thing? How large is my emotional truth going to be conveyed in the camera? As you all know, the camera restricts what you see, so you need to be very attentive as an actor to what you put out. Another helpful tip is you always want to make sure that you are seen, heard, and understood. As an example, when I decided to respond with this tape, I had to find a place that I thought had adequate lighting, that had a unique enough background to where I would still stand out, and of course some guarantee that you can hear and understand me. So I hope I'm doing that. Normally I would have a mic. I don't have it with me on this trip, so apologies for any sound that may not sound great. So you always want to ask yourself that. One of the great things about auditioning on tape or interviewing with a self-tape is that you can rewatch. So that's always my next tip. Watch yourself, share it with people that you trust to give you feedback of what it sounds like, how it's coming across. Tape and retape and watch and rewatch. Really hard thing for young actors to do is get over that idea of watching yourself. It's a hard thing, I know, for all of you. When you hear your voice on tape or you see yourself, there can be that, feels like teeth grinding maybe a little bit, or you feel exposed. That's a healthy exercise for any actor to put themselves through. I promise you, it gets a little bit easier, and you'll also master your technique and see what it is that you're actually doing with your body, your facial expressions, the little idiosyncrasies that we maybe don't know that we do. You want to be aware of everything that you're putting out there. So I would always say, watch yourself as much as possible to see how you're seen, how you're heard, how you're understood. Let's see. Sorry, I'm checking my notes here that I wrote. This is an interesting thing. Depending on what you might be asked to do. I recently, for example, had to do a scene with multiple scene partners. Now, normally for a monologue, I'm going to deliver it at a point just past where the actual camera is. I'm looking directly at you because I want you guys to all connect with me if you can. But normally for a monologue, I would pick a point of reference maybe there so that I can be as truthful as possible, but not be directly looking down the barrel of the lens, as it were. But now for scenes, that's a little bit different. It could get tricky. So I'm going to show you just an easy trick, something that I use whenever I have to send in a self-tape of a scene that has multiple scene partners, is I pick point of references that are something I can clearly come back to. For example, if I were to do Act 1, Scene 3 of Macbeth, there's a scene where Macbeth and Banquo these are soldiers traveling together, if you don't know the story, after war, and they are met by 2 other fellow soldiers, and there's a moment where Macbeth has text that he delivers to himself, to the soldiers, and then his friend. So I pick the point of reference in the room and rehearse with those points of reference every time I talk to them and I look at those points of references. And then particularly with Shakespeare, if there's a moment where I'm talking to myself or to the audience, I pick that same point that I would pick if I were using a monologue. So I'll do some text for you just to give you kind of an example of what that is. Glamis and Thane of Cawdor, the greatest is behind. Thanks for your pains. Do you not hope your children shall be kings when those that gave the Thane of Cawdor to me promised no less to them? And so that's just a small example of how I can put partners in the room and talk to them while staying still on camera and hopefully in frame. Those are all things that you can, again, watch and rewatch and make sure that you are achieving those mini goals that you might have in a scene, watching those partners change. But pick those specific points of reference in the room so you can always go back to them and be consistent with what you are doing in your partner work. Let's talk about the beginning of every self-tape, which is the slate. Now, different theaters, different film, TV directors will want different things. Often TV and film will want a slate that is about where I have myself framed here, about head to waist, mid-waist or so. And then always they'll also want something that is as full body as possible so that they can see what you look like on camera. For theaters, it's a little bit different. I usually film it right around here. I want to have some freedom of movement. So just that, have that as a frame of reference. Not everywhere is the same. But the slate. The slate is the moment where you introduce yourself. It's usually asked at the beginning of your materials. For theater, I like to slate and then go directly into my piece. For film and TV, usually it's something that you'll do separately. A very simple way of doing that, most people do this. They say your name, you list your talent, agency, or management group, if you have an agent or management group, talent group. If you represent yourself, just say yourself. And then it's also a moment, and this is something that a really great teacher of mine told me a long time ago. This is the one moment where you can be vulnerable and yourself. This is the same effect that you would want to have when you first walk into a room to audition. Have an open heart, be yourself, be free, and also show them who you really are, because you may not be the character that you're portraying. So this is a moment where you do that. My slate always looks the same. It's a little bit how I started this short video for you all. I say, hi, I'm Chris Hecke, and this is a piece from Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 3. Or, hi, I'm Chris Hecke, and I'm going to do a Performance Friday video for Play On, our web series for continued online theater education, presented to you by TheatreSquared. I don't know if I'll get a logo or something here. Again, that's more of YouTube culture and not part of your self-tape. But that's normally what I want to do in a self-tape. Introduce myself, be free, be open, always take a big breath, and let that be a moment where you really try to connect with the people that you're going to be sending the tape to. A good way to practice this is just to do it to yourself and then watch and see what kind of person came across. You don't ever want to be this person, or, unless you are. And then, I'm sorry. If you want to be that person, if that's who you are, that's great. I want to celebrate that. But you want to be your truest self when you show up for these. And then I'll wrap this up because I feel like it's been going for a while. Hopefully we have enough for a little bit of a class on this, or a lesson on this. This is the best acting advice I ever got, whether it's for TV, film, theater. And it's a simple phrase that you can all say to yourselves. And the phrase is, I am enough. Or I'm telling you, you are enough. No author, poet, playwright could ever write a character that is as full and as rich and as true as what your actual human experience is, right? You have lived every moment of your existence yourself, and you bring that with you with every fiber and cell of your being. One of the things that really trips people up, especially young actors or people that are early career actors, is this idea that you have to energize and create more than what there is in any character that you play. And the truth is that you are enough. You are already beautiful, emotionally deep, real, and your ultimate instrument is your heart. You have access to that, you control that, and that is the part that we want to see in anything that you play. So find ways to allow your heart to be shared through the character's eyes and words and speech and body and movement and all that. But tell yourself ultimately, right before you do any self-tape, I am enough. And you know that the way you show up and present this is already way richer than it was before you pulled it off the page, right? Before you learned it or memorized, or if you're reading the scene, sometimes if you're doing a self-tape in less than 24 hours, some directors say, yeah, go ahead and just read it to us cold. We just want to hear it in your voice. So you might be holding a piece of paper. If you do that, remember to keep it out here so you can see your face in the tape. But remember that you are enough, no matter what you're doing, how far from you the character may be, or how far you think the character is from you. Remember that ultimately, your greatest tool and power as an actor is to let that character borrow your heart. So your heart is the thing that's going to live truthfully. It's the thing that's going to come across on any self-tape more than anything else, is the heart of the person behind it. So tell yourselves that you are enough in all the beautiful and diverse ways that we all show up to things, whether it's with our personality, our physicality, the truth of who we are and what we bring to any situation. But those are my tips. I hope this has been helpful. I do always want to extend this, that if you are a serious young actor, and if you ever need any kind of tips, helps, if you have questions, TheatreSquared and all of the artists that you're interacting with, Morgan and Jordan Haynes, are incredible resources for you. But I also would like to extend an invitation. I try to do this anytime I'm doing anything educational. If anyone has real questions about acting, or serious, if you think you might be serious about this career, you are welcome to reach out to me. I want to try to help and support as many people as I can. If it's just sharing knowledge or stories or my ideas about the craft itself. I will allow Jordan and Morgan to give out my email. So please reach out to me via email. You can track me down and ask me anything about the career, acting, how I got here, going to grad school for acting. If there's some way I can help, I'd love to. Thanks. Stay safe, everybody.